All right, here we go. All right, let's share the screen and get into this fun management lecture that we have. It is fun. I enjoy teaching management. I've always enjoyed teaching management. So, yesterday we left off with, the decision making and the strategic planning, tactical planning, operational planning, all that. Now the chapter gets into. Let me get this moved. Hold on. Why are you not moving? All right, forget it. There it goes. Now we're going to get into levels of management, okay? Because when you get into corporations and the big organizations, you're going to have levels of management. Your top management are your top people who are running the whole show. CEO, Chief Executive Officer, I'm sure you've heard of. It's a very common title. And you always hear these guys that run these giant corporations will be the Chief Executive Officer. Well, you can be the CEO of a smaller corporation as well. It doesn't matter. COO is Chief Operational Officer, and it's sometimes they flip them around, or they'll say they won't have a CEO, they'll have a COO for some reason, and sometimes they'll have both. And the COO is like right below the CEO usually. The CEO is taking care of operations, whereas the CEO usually takes care of the whole thing. But some corporations have only a COO, and they just don't say CEO. Common thing. CFO. Chair of financial operations, or chief financial operations. That is that's the person who runs all the accounting, the finance, that thing. And the CIO, which has become very important, chief information officer. A friend of mine is one for a small company. Well, not small. They're a government contractor. They're fairly big, but they're not gigantic. But he's one, and he is all about cybersecurity. These are the guys that handle all the data, how the data is being shared, how this data is being stored. And he is a cybersecurity expert, which is part of the reason they hired him. Middle management, when you get right below those guys, that includes general managers, which I used to be, division managers, same, and brand and plant managers who are responsible for tactical planning and controlling. So these are the guys running the operations. These are guys taking, when we talked about the tactical planning, they're taking the tactical planning and they're putting it into action. Supervisory management are those directly responsible for the workers and the workers' daily performance. So those will be your floor managers or your frontline operations managers. And actually, you move your way up this. You start from the bottom and you move your way up when you're in an organization, if you stay with them long enough to do so. So he takes them and he puts them in this triangle, and the triangle does a good job of kind of showing you, because the bulk of your employees, of people in your organization, are your employees. The people who are actually working, the people who are being supervised. Above them are what we call the first line. You will also hear frontline managers. They're interchangeable terms, either one. Supervisors, foremen, department heads. These are the people who manage the employees directly. And we're going to get in different skill levels in a minute. And it's a different skill level at supervisory management than it is at top management. We're going to get that in a few minutes. Middle management are the guys running the whole thing, right? That were running the whole operation, not the whole corporation, but the operations. Plant managers, division heads, branch managers. In my world, it would have been general managers and district managers would have been in this situation. Top management are like CEO, CFO, vice presidents. But the way he does the whole triangle, because it shows you there's only a few people at the top and there's a lot of people at the bottom. When I worked for Planet Hollywood, they had this same thing, but with everyone's, our actual positions, and they flipped it over. They would show the triangle upside down, and they had the employees at the top, because their whole thing was, if you're taking care of your employees, then they're taking care of your guests, and they were 100% right. So, you always put the staff on top, but that's a fun gimmick. That's not usually the way you see it, but it worked for our corporation. This was a good slide I grabbed from the author. I just wanted to, I thought it was good to show America's most powerful female managers. I'll rank 1 through 10. And, Marilyn Houston, who works at Lockheed Martin, I mean, that's fantastic that she's running. I mean, that is a giant multi-billion not multi-billion, but probably $2 or $3 billion corporation. Mary Barra running GM. GM is gigantic. As you go down, it's just really cool, because you would not have seen this even 20 years ago. all these women who are the head of these giant now corporations. I'm sure everyone's heard of Sheryl Sandberg from Facebook. Safra Katz from Oracle. Yeah, I've seen her speak. I mean, it's just it's great that we have this now. It brings a whole nother dynamic to business. It really does. Organizing is what we're getting into now. You take your different levels of management have different skill levels, and these are the people who organize. So, whereas the author puts it, creates a unified system. They bring everything together. They make everything function. They make they make sure all the bells and whistles go off. That sort of thing. The first are technical skills. That's the ability to perform all of the tasks that need to be performed. That's, if you're in my business, that's, you're the dining room, you're the front of house manager, which is the dining room, the bar, and the host stand. You have to know how to do each one of those jobs. You don't have to be an expert, but you have to have the technical skills. If you're a chef, if you want to be a chef in the kitchen, you start off learning all the different positions in the kitchen, which is actually a little harder and a lot harder work, to be honest with you. But you have to learn the different spots in the kitchen, then you can move up. But those are technical skills. And when you get new managers, well, we'll get into that in a second. Human relations, you have to be able to communicate and motivate. They enable managers to work through people and with people. So you have to have human relations skills. So technical skills, human relations skills, and conceptual skills. That's the ability to see the big picture, understand the forest through the trees, that type of thing. And I love this graph that he does. And I want you to look at it from the bottom and go up, and not from the top and go down. Because first line managers, who are most of the time newer, not always, but most of the time they're newer, they come in and where's their heavy skill set? Well, they have a lot of technical skills, right? They've worked on the plant floor, or they've worked on the grill and the fryer in the kitchen, or they've worked on the floor at like a Gap or wherever, whatever company they're with. So you have a lot of technical skills. They know how the sales equipment works. If it's a kitchen person, they understand how the grill works and how you cook different meats and how you prepare different vegetables. Human relation skills are less. Why? They haven't developed these yet. When you're a first line manager, you're working on learning your human relation skills. And everyone, well, how can you not have them? Well, you trust me. Everyone has them, but not everyone has them to the same degree. Some people are naturally really good at it. They're naturally very good communicators. Other people have to work on it. And then there's conceptual skills, which you really learn from running the business. And when you're a first line manager, you're not really getting a taste of that yet. You're probably just starting to. I know in my business, when you get to be the head chef or you get to be like the bar manager, that's when you really start getting your first idea of the conceptual side of all this, because those are two big money generators, the kitchen and the bar, and the costs have to be controlled and the labor has to be controlled. And you start really seeing the big picture, okay? Middle managers are the next step up. Again, we're going from the bottom up. Look at how they're all equal: technical skills, human relation skills, and conceptual skills. So what happens when you get to that level? Like when I was a GM, a general manager, you don't use your technical skills as much. In fact, you get rusty with some of them. You really you've been using your human relation skills, you've been developing those, so those get bigger. And as a GM, your conceptual skills really grow. They really grow. You start seeing the business because you're running a whole unit. So you're running an entire business. You got to remember restaurants, and we'll talk about this more down the road when we get into operations management. But restaurants, in a nutshell, it's the whole business process inside of one building. We bring in raw material through the back. We manufacture it. In other words, in the kitchen, we make sauces and marinate meats and do all that stuff. But it all comes in the back as either canned sauces or raw vegetables or that type of thing, olive oil, that kind of stuff. You then manufacture it. You cook it, put it together on a plate. That's the marketing side. It has to look nice and pretty. People eat with their eyes first. Then you have waiters and waitresses out on the floor who are selling it. And then the person has it, they eat it right there. It's not like the Gap. When you buy a shirt at the Gap, no one sat in the back and made your shirt. All right. That shirt came in a box. We don't do that. So studying restaurants is really a great way to learn the whole conceptual part, because you see the whole business process from beginning to end. But when you get this middle manager part, you're not using your technical skills a lot. In fact, I'm going to tell you this, you're starting to lose them. I used to joke after I've been been general manager for about 8 years, 9 years, all the way through till I finished. I I used to joke. I used to tell my cooks, "You don't want me to jump behind that line and help you cook. You don't want." There was a time you did want me to. Not why. I hadn't done it forever. You're stepped away from it because you're in middle management now. Then when you get into top management, their technical skills are very small. Why? They never use them. Their human relation skills are bigger and their conceptual skills are huge because they've learned how to run an entire business. That's why they're up at the top like that. So they don't need to step behind a grill and cook burgers. They don't need to work the fryer. They don't need to be able to work the different machines on the plant floor of your manufacturing plant. They're not folding shirts at the Gap. They may still remember how to do some of that stuff, but the level has gone way down. So I love this concept because think of it from the bottom up. And it basically not only shows you what you need at those levels, but how you progress at those levels when you move up through an organization, when you get promoted, which is hopefully what we'll do. I love that he threw this in, this saying thank you. Yes, it's the most basic and I would say most important human relation skill. Some managers get uppity about thanking their staff. Don't be afraid to thank your staff. I had a manager say to me one time, "Well, why are you thanking them? They're doing their job." Really? Really? That's the way you want to treat them? No. When they do the job, they do their job well, you thank them. When they do something extra, you thank them. When they're doing things you want them to do, you thank them. A pat on the back means a ton to employees. It makes them happier. Your profits will be better. They're going to generate more sales. They're going to enjoy working there. And who should you thank? Well, interns, of course. If you have interns, they're not working for much money, but they're the future of your company and of your industry. So they're coming in, they're there to learn, and they're usually not earning a whole lot. So you thank them. I like the way he puts lawyers in there. I call my lawyer. I'm not thanking you for anything. Nah, he's a good guy. But yes, in the example he makes, you would. Many do pro bono work. I run a charity. We do have lawyers on the staff or in our membership, I should say. We used to have 2 on the board. They're not on the board anymore, but they still do pro bono work for us. Did I fall a little bit there? All right. And I don't like saying the little people, his third bullet point there. The mailroom, repair people, cleaning staff. No, they're not the little people. They're just important as everybody else. So, but you should thank them. You should thank everyone, man. I thank my busboys when they would do a good job. I thank my servers, my hostess when they would do a good job. Everybody. It doesn't have to be a big grand thank you. A little quick pat on the back. Hey, good job tonight. Thanks. That's all it needs to be. It means a ton to people. It really does. And by the way, if you work in a big building, big office, and you have people in your mailroom, people who do your repairs, the cleaning staff, make sure you know their names. Know their names. I know names of the people in Nova, in the Annandale campus who work in my building. I know their names. I know the names of the guys who do the maintenance. Why? We have a hospitality program. We have a kitchen, and kitchens, things break down the kitchen. I'm on good relations with those guys, and I feed them when we have stuff. When we make stuff, we feed them. They love that too. But it's important to know them. Treat people like human beings. Not just say thank you. Say hello. Say hello. Ask them how they're doing today. That type of thing. It means a lot, guys. It really does. Staffing is harder than it sounds. Getting and keeping the right people, or as I used to say, get the right people on the boat. You want to get the right people on the boat. You get the right crew on the boat's going to run great. You don't have the right crew on the boat's going to teeter and go the wrong way, and things are going to happen. Staffing, he defines it as hiring, motivating, and retaining the best people available, absolutely, to accomplish the company's objectives. It sounds easier than it actually is. Hiring can be tricky. Hiring can be hard. People often interview better than they actually will perform. You can easily get fooled in an interview. You think someone's fantastic, and a month later, you want to get rid of them. I mean, anybody who's been a manager has been down that road. Motivating is something you learn. You know what? I could give you a whole semester lecture on motivating people. Until you get out and actually start doing it, you're not going to learn it. I can get you out of here with some very good ideas and some good tools in your pocket, but until you actually get out there and start doing it. But motivating also plays into retaining. In my business, retention is a big problem. Restaurants tend to have staff that turn over naturally anyway. So if you're turning over if you turn over your staff by 150% in a year, you're actually doing a good job. Because a lot of people come in and they have no intention of staying very long, right? They're just transitional jobs, mostly in the front of house, the waiters and stuff like that. Your cooks tend to stay a little longer, but you want to retain them, and how you treat them is going to play a huge part in how you retain them. And how you treat them is a big part of how you're motivating them and hiring the right people. Because I tell you, the other thing that happens is you hire people and they're not good, they don't fit in with your staff. All of a sudden, what happens? Your staff starts quitting because they don't want to work with these other people. And it's your good people who end up leaving. It's hard. It's critical. He talks about how it's especially essential in internet and high tech areas. Yeah, it's critical. There's a lot of skill level there. That's necessary. And that last bullet point is 100% true. People do not want to work at places where they're not treated well or treated fairly. All right. I'll tell you something, man. Treated well, give them fair pay. That's what people want. You got to treat people with respect, and you got to treat them honorably. You got to pay them fairly. You got to treat them fairly. In all the years I managed, 30 years that I was managing, I never once had an employee tell me a manager was too strict. I never had that. I had them complain sometimes about how a manager spoke to them, but never say a manager was too strict. I never had that. But I had a ton of them come to me and say a manager was unfair. Treating people fairly, he says fair play, but he also says treated well. Treating people fairly is treating them well. I had plenty of them come and say such and such is unfair and talk to me about situations, and they were right. It was usually a younger manager that you had to kind of, okay, here's how you handle this type of thing. You got to kind of take them under your wing, and then after you're done with them, okay, now you go talk to Susie because she's upset because of the way you treated her. But that's how people learn. That's how they learn to be better managers. You got to sit and talk with them. You got to point out to them, here's why it's unfair. Young managers will tend to put the company's policies above everything else, and you can't always do that. You got to take care of your people. And that's a line you have to learn how to toe. It really is. Staffing is a tricky business. I love this 6 sins of staffing. Don't hire someone because you're in a rush. Please, I beg of you, whatever industry you're working in, don't do this. Don't ever hire someone because you're in a rush. I have run into this in the restaurant industry. It is a nightmare. They get understaffed. They start panicking. They're hiring everyone who comes through the door. You're just going to end up with a lot of bad people. All right. Don't do it. I don't care what situation you're in and what business, do things right. Go through your interview processes, vet these people properly. Don't get caught up in applicants' appearances. They can be deceiving. Well, it doesn't look like someone we'd want to have working here. You don't know till you sit down and talk to them. All right. It's hard to judge a person's character without talking to them. Don't try to save money by limiting screening processes. Oh my God, yes. Don't cut out. And I've seen restaurants I've worked with will do that. You're consulting them like, well, we used to do 3 interviews. Now we did 2 because we need to hire people. No. Do 3. And one of them should be the general manager. The last one should be the general manager to make sure you're getting the right people, because that's the most experienced manager in your unit. Don't forget about feedback. And that's where we're talking about saying thank you. That's part of feedback. But feedback is developing people. Hey, good job today. Hey, you know what? We probably could have done that a little better. Let's talk about what happened this afternoon. It doesn't have to be discipline. Feedback can be discipline. It doesn't have to be discipline. You can give feedback in a very constructive way, and you can also approach it in a way that doesn't offend people. You never want to, if it's about something someone has done that was maybe not bad, but wrong, they didn't do a proper procedure or something, don't attack them. Talk about the procedure. Triangulate the problem. We both have a problem. Our problem is this over here. It's not you. Because if you come up and you say it's you, guess what happens? They get defensive and they're not going to listen to what you're saying. Don't give promotions just because it's time. Oh man, I've been down this road. She's been here forever. He's been here forever, and it's their turn. Well, not if they're not ready. Not if they're not ready, and not if they haven't earned it, and not if they're going to fail. I'm not going to put anyone in a position where they're going to fail. If you're not ready, I'll sit down. We'll have a talk about what you need to do to get you ready, but not just because it's your turn. It doesn't work. I've had people promoted into management for that reason. Doesn't work. I've had servers promoted to bartender. Oh, I want to be a bartender. Not everyone can be a bartender. Almost everybody can be a manager, but not everyone can be a bartender. Bartender has to have a certain personality, and it's actually a different personality than a waiter's. Waiters can be very reserved. Bartenders can't be really. They have to be kind of gregarious and fun and that sort of thing. So it's some people, it's like you really, now I'll put you in management. You don't need to be a bartender. And don't cheat your employees. Don't underpay them. Don't cheat them out of money. Don't cheat them out of their tips. Don't, or anything that they're earning. Don't cheat them. Pay them well. Give them the benefits, the best benefits you can give them. I understand smaller companies can't always give great benefits, but they'll appreciate it if you can give what benefits you can. If they see you trying, that means a lot. It says something to them about you being their employer. All right, then we get into leadership, but I'm not going to jump into this yet. We have a video. What is it? It's 10 after. You know what? Let's go ahead and watch the video. We'll watch a video and then we'll come back. That'll work because it's only not even quite 10 after yet. I got the video set up. I do this time. I really do. And I'm going to click my buttons. This is a great video. We're getting into a leadership lecture now. So this video is about leadership, and it's about how it starts with leading yourself. And of course, it's one of my TED Talks. I love my TED Talks, but this is a really good video, guys. Enjoy.
Good afternoon. Today I want to share with you my leadership utopia. And when I was discussing this with a friend of mine, he was asking, leadership in utopia? Would we even need leadership in utopia? Isn't utopia finally the place and the moment where we can get rid of all of these leaders and live free? Well, I don't know. I think in a utopia there will be humans, hopefully. And if there are humans, there will hopefully still be social beings as well. And whenever there are social beings, they come together as well and form sometimes groups, sometimes organizations as well. And when there are these organizations, then I think the words of Peter Drucker are true. Only 3 things happen naturally in organizations: friction, confusion, and underperformance. Therefore, you don't need anything, but everything else requires leadership. So I do think also in utopia we should look at a leadership. But the question is, what kind of leadership? Should we look at the hero model of leadership, where the shining star is the ideal person? I don't know. Today I want to explore with you a different kind of leadership. And for this, I want you to do a little thought experiment. Think about the best leader you have ever worked with. Take a couple of seconds. Think about that person. What did he or she do, say, and so on? Now, all of you will have experienced other people, but I would dare to say, I don't think you will have things like, well, you know, the way that person yelled at me in the morning, that was excellent. That was just brilliant, the way, and I wanted always have more. Probably not. Probably that person would have done different things. And I want to explore that together with you. Now, I do think leadership is an interesting thing, and sometimes it's over-glorified, but whenever you become a leader, and I had the chance to lead small teams, large organizations, non-profit, profit organizations, whenever you become a leader, you have like a rendezvous with reality. Leadership is a bit like parenting, right? You have all these visions and ideas what you will do, and then you're in the moment, and then what I would call the leadership problem formula kicks in. And probably the people you have thought about just a second ago have mastered this formula. What does that formula look like? Every leader and every of you who has ever been in a leadership position might have faced these challenges. I think every leader faces the leadership problem formula, and that goes TLT times people times power. First one is TLT, which for me stands for too little time. There's just not enough time to do things, and you can't pass it around to, oh, somebody will take care of it. No, it's you, and then you need to do something. And what many people then fall back in is what I would call the headless chicken syndrome. They run around and say, oh, no, you do that, you do that, you do that, you do that. And that might then not be the greatest leadership. Then comes as well people. All leaders have to deal with people. And for me, I'm always reminded of my very first official leadership position, more than 10 years ago. So I would have my first direct reports, and the first direct report was coming into the room, and I had it all lined up. I had the vision. I had the team spirit. I had the story to tell, basically. And that was a very assertive young gentleman who came to me and said, Lars, that's all nice, but I have a question for you. Actually, I studied the email policy of the company. And you know, I have a motto I live by. And I always include this, and I have this for the past 5 years, I always include this in my email signature. Can I do this as well in this company? And there was, with all my stories and with all my vision and so on, it was like, what? Is that what leadership is all about? So I was studying the manuals for 2 hours and so on. Finally, we said, okay, let's go ahead with this one. But everybody who's ever led will see like it's not always about the glorious and shiny things, but it's all about the little things, the little discussion that we have to do. The last element is power, and that's an interesting one. There's a very interesting study done at University of Berkeley in '98, and they brought in random students and selected them randomly in groups of 3. And from these groups of 3, 2 of them had to do a 2-hour assignment. And one of them was randomly assigned to be the supervisor. And then, as social science experiments goes, there was a special twist to it. At half an hour, the researchers then brought in cookies. And of course, it was videotaped. And then they observed what happens actually there. They had some hypothesis. And sure enough, the people who were randomly assigned to be supervisors significantly ate more of the cookies, but not only this. They actually left significantly more of the breadcrumbs as well on the table, like I'm this, and it was very visually measurable. And that just shows, after 30 minutes of random higher status, this power thing kicks in. It's something within us in humans, and I think that is also something to be needed to take care of. Now, I do think these are the classic leadership problems that are not very often taken care of, but I think in a utopia, we need to address those. So how do we do that? What is the way out? For this one, I think we need to travel back in time. Actually, almost 1900 years, to Rome, to a person called Marcus Aurelius. Now, some of you might know Marcus Aurelius. Marcus Aurelius is one of the predominant figures of the Stoic school of philosophy. The Stoics, like the Zen of the West, almost. But Marcus Aurelius is interesting for leadership because he was running a little, little side business also on the side. He had a little side job in moonlighting. He was, and that's why on the statue, he's also, you see him there on a horse as well. He was at the time as well, on top of being a philosopher, he had the side job of being the emperor of Rome at the time. And the historian William Irvine calls him actually the true beacon of enlightened leadership. He was supposed to be one of the last of the 5 good kings of Rome. Now, Marcus Aurelius, what we know of him, said things like this: the happiness of your life depends on the quality of your thoughts. He said, so act virtuous, use your time well, and be cheerful. Then when you drop from life's tree, you will drop like ripe fruit. Now, can you imagine these words being uttered by some of the leaders like Trump and so on today? Most likely not really. What did he do? And we know a couple of things that were transmitted from this one. I think that is a sign for utopia leadership that we can dive into. He was focusing a lot of his time on a field which I would call self-leadership. Leading oneself first before going out and leading others. And I think that, in my leadership challenges, helped me enormously to actually face some of the challenges of the leadership formula that I've shared with you. The founder of Visa, Dee Hock, once said, if you want to lead, invest at least 40% of your time in leading yourself first before you go out to others. Now, how do you do that? And what I want to share with you are a couple of strategies that I've tested, that I've worked with, and so on, to really try to see what can we do with that field of self-leadership. The first strategy and the first field of self-leadership that is out there is self-awareness. When you become a leader, it's actually some of the crucial things to be self-aware of yourself, but it's getting more and more difficult. Any of you have ever been in a leadership position, if you've ever tried to ask for feedback, that's not so easy. Huh? You ask like, hey team, hey group, do you have some feedback? And very often what you encounter is the silence. Like in these ancient Western movies with these dust balls. Come on, some feedback. Oh, brilliant, but everything's fine. And you know, no, that's not right. Well, you're signing the paycheck, basically. And they're like, oh, no, great, brilliant. Now, there are some ways, of course, to learn to ask also for better feedback. But one of the things I think every leader can do is to check that for themselves. And one of the tools that I have is what I would call the character traits check. A character traits check. You can do that on a rainy Sunday and do the following. Ask yourself, for example, what was the worst leader that you ever had? And then think what your face does then with this. This is me reflecting upon this. And then go further and ask, like, what did he or she do actually to be such a worst leader? Did he yell, or did she yell? Or did he maybe withhold information? When I was doing this exercise, it was like, well, that bad leader, withholding information. And here comes now the trick in this tool. Give yourself a score from 1 to 5 for yourself. How good are you, for example, at sharing or withholding information? How bad are you at this one? And for me, that was like, oh, I'm actually not very good at this. So what is my plan to move that up, to become very good at this one? Because what we find bad in others, will very often resonates also with ourselves. One of the key things to do from time to time. But if you do that, you will see also the vapor trail effect. You do that the next morning, you're fully engaged, but then, like one of these trails at the beginning, it's very sharp, but later on it goes, it fades away. And that's why what you can do is a strategy that Marcus Aurelius did every day. And that is self-reflection. Yeah? Taking just a couple of minutes during the day and thinking about the challenges that you have achieved, but also that you are maybe about to have during the day. Marcus Aurelius was famous for doing that in the night. For me, this 5-minute reflection, sometimes I did in the evening, sometimes also in the morning, going to Pain Quotidien, having a quick coffee, and then just opening my black book and just asking a couple of questions. What are the challenges that I'm about to say? How did my leadership go yesterday? How would the leader I would like to be do and face the challenges that I'm about to face today? Then asking this and putting this answer. And just 1 or 2 minutes of those, actually the interesting studies, University of California, just 1 or 2 minutes of those can help raise your compassion level as well for others and maybe beat that cookie problem that we've talked about earlier as well before. Self-reflection, 2 to 5 minutes. And then we come to the last one, and that is self-regulation. You know, you've done your awareness, you've done your reflection, but you still will encounter the moments. You will still encounter the meeting, the discussions that you have, where people come in who've promised you, yes, I will do everything, I will have everything ready, and they come in the room and say, and let's talk it like, let's talk what? The report you said was ready. Oh, sorry, I don't have this. And all the other things, the people who challenge you think they should be on your side and you should be on the other side and so on. And all these moments that you will face as a leader, when these moments you think that, stop doing this, do what I told you now. And this is, of course, not the best leadership. But how do we best do that? Self-regulation. And one tool that has helped me enormously is what is called reframing. Reframing is a simple tool where you think, like, where you have this coming up, like, I want you to, no? You stop. And ask yourself for 1 to 2 seconds. Well, on a scale from 1 to 10, how important is that issue right now, with 10 being really my life goal, so to speak? Where is that? If it's a 10, well, then you better engage really fully in it. But maybe very often it's more like a 2 or 3, and so on. And that reframing, that taking a step back can help you enormously in actually addressing the situation. Small strategies, small things, but what I would encourage you to do is think about this when you have a leadership position. Invest this time in self-awareness, self-reflection, self-regulation, and in self-leadership in general before you go out and lead others. Because very often we hear about leadership, like people want to lead others, we want to do everything. But why not start first with leading yourself? I think if we all did this, this will lead to leadership utopia that we can strive for. And I think we can start all by doing now. And hopefully if you all start doing now and somebody asks in 10, 20 years, maybe in our utopia, the question, who was the best leader that you've ever worked with? Then maybe they think of you. Thank you.
All right, so there's something to think about, guys. When it comes to leadership, it starts with the self. You have to start with yourself. You have to know yourself. That's what he's talking about, being self-aware. You have to know yourself. A lot of people call it knowing yourself. And if you have bad habits, you have to change them. If you're not doing something the way you should, you have to change it. When I was a young manager, I used to bark orders at people. Probably typical, actually it is typical for a young guy. And I remember one of my mentors, Jim Wiedemann, he made me sit down with a waitress that didn't like me. Her name was Julie. And he said, take off your tie, sit down with her, and just let her speak. Don't interrupt her. Don't. And I did. And man, did she tear into me. Everything she didn't like about me. Although I didn't realize how I was making her feel. Yeah, she felt like I was degrading toward her. She felt like I talked down to her. She felt like I picked on her above everyone else. I was a kid. I was right out of college. I had no idea, but it was a great learning experience because one of the best ways to see yourself is through someone else's eyes. Now, Julie and I went on to be really good friends later on, and we had a very good employer-employee relationship after that. But I was a young guy, and it was a real eye-opener. And sometimes when you're young, you have to have some real eye-openers like that. It starts with yourself. Years later, when I was a general manager, I would always check myself before I went into my store. What I mean by check myself, what mood am I in? What's the look on my face? What's my attitude? Because if I go in there angry or upset or mad for some reason and not thinking about it, I'm going to bring the whole staff down. Why? I'm the boss. I'm the head guy. I'm going to bring that's all that goes downhill, and I will bring everyone down. And I didn't want to do that, so I would check myself at the door. But it starts with you. You have to. You know what? That SWOT analysis we did the other day. You can do that on yourself. It's a great way to self-assess. Oh, and by the way, guys, you did a much better job on that than the night class did. The night class was not nearly as good at it as you guys were. All right, just thought I'd throw that little one out for you. All right, it's 1:24. Let's come back at, let's come back at 1:35. All right, take 10-minute break. Usually give you 15, but let's do 10. Maybe we'll get you guys out of here a couple minutes early because it's so beautiful outside. All right, that's okay. All right, so let's talk about the different types of leadership. Autocratic leadership. You know, you command your autocratic, this is the way it goes, and that's it. Autocratic is you make decisions, you don't consult anyone. It's very effective in emergencies or with new or unskilled workers. We'll talk about that in a minute. Participative or democratic leadership, managers and employees work together to make decisions. So you're bringing your people in. If you're participative or democratic in leadership, you're bringing them in. It said usually increases job satisfaction. Yeah, it does. We'll get into it in a minute. Free rein leadership, or what we call laissez-faire leadership, managers set objectives, employees are relatively free to do what it takes to accomplish those objectives. So you let them go. Well, who would you do this with? Very experienced employees, usually high-end employees. Most successful when you're supervising professionals. When you're supervising people who really, really know their job, they don't take a whole lot of leadership or a whole lot of supervision. So let's check on something here. Don't shout it out. I'm going to do a poll. We're going to do a poll. I'm going to let you vote here in a second. Which leadership style would you prefer managers in your future career use? So think about your career, your future career. There's the poll. It's the wrong one. Hold on. The professor will get it right. That's the one from yesterday. Where's the other poll? End poll. Okay. Somebody actually put Bank of America. All right. So which leadership style, guys? Which style would you prefer managers in your future career use? There's a poll. Let's see what you got to say. All right, come on. That's 15 of you. We got more than that. All right, 19 out of 22. There's 3 more people out there, 2 more people out there. 20 out of 22. Come on, let's try to get 100% here. There's always 1 or 2 people not paying attention, isn't there? 20 out of 22. All right, I'm gonna let it go a few more seconds. All right, I'm closing the poll. Let me share the results. Look at that. 2 people actually said autocratic. Depending on what you're doing, none of these styles are bad, by the way. They're all used for different purposes. So some people like a lot of direction. Some people feel like they need a lot of direction, especially if they're new. Participative democratic is always the biggest one. 15 out of 20 is 75% said that. And then free reign, 3 out of the 20 said free reign. It's usually a little higher. Last night, participative and democratic were in last night's class were pretty much neck and neck, and then democratic went out toward the end. But only 3 would like free reign. That's interesting. You're an interesting bunch. All right, let's keep going. Let's keep going. I love this this graph that he did. On the left-hand side, use of authority by manager. On the other side, area of freedom for employees. When you look at the top, boss-centered leadership, all the way over to the right, subordinate-centered leadership. And he shows you the progression, and it is a progression. All right. I used to have the horrible job of fixing restaurants for companies. When he would pull out of my job to do this, it was rough work. It really was. Because you have to go in at first, and the place is a wreck. It's usually a mess. The staff is stealing. The staff is not showing up to work on time. They're not in proper uniform. The food's not getting made properly. There's all kinds of a mess. And you have to be very autocratic. And I used to joke that you have to come in for the first 2 months, you're Darth Vader. You have to be Darth Vader because you have to lead in a very autocratic, you have to be very discipline oriented. So that's where you see on the left-hand side, manager makes decision and announces it. Hey, here's what we're doing. And this is what I would do when I would first go in. Here's what we're doing. I don't care what you say. I don't want your feedback, nothing. Later on, manager sells a decision. Here's why we're doing things this way. Later on, manager presents idea and invites questions. Hey guys, here's a change we want to make. What do you think? What are you doing? You're getting the place where you want it to be. You came in autocratic, very heavy autocratic, using my example of a restaurant that's not running properly. You got rid of the people you need to get rid of, which is a hard part. No one enjoys firing people. Usually the first person you fire, by the way, is the general manager. You don't start fixing a restaurant by firing the dishwasher or the busboys. You fire the general manager the minute you walk in. But you start off, like, I'm going to make every decision, to here's why I'm doing what I'm doing, to what do you guys think? You're moving over toward participative management. Then after you've been there a month and a half, 2 months, you start using participative democratic management. You present tentative decisions subject to change. Hey, let's try this. You present a problem, you give suggestions and make suggestions. Hey guys, here's something else we need to fix. Because usually you're running into a lot of problems and you have to prioritize them. And you're at a point after a couple of months where you can start working on things you couldn't work on at the beginning, mainly because you're back to teaching the basics. Then you go to manager defines limits, ask group to make decisions. So you're getting to a point where you're really getting the leaders of the staff involved and you're getting the staff's opinion on things. And then hopefully by the time you're leaving, there's a group of people in there that you can give free reign to. Now you can never give, in my situation, you can never give 100% free reign. You would have chaos. But you could give it a lot of it to key people to help you run shifts properly. So that's kind of an example of how I would go through this. Again, it was hard work. It was very rough work. Not something I was fond of doing. I mean, you feel like you accomplish a lot when you get done, but while you're doing it, sometimes I didn't feel so good about myself. Alan Mulally, former CEO of Ford. This guy was something else. He led Ford through the Great Recession. And they didn't get a government bailout. They were the only auto firm to not get a government bailout. All they asked for was a line of credit, and they never used it. The reason for the success was his leadership style was very authoritarian. Why? They were in a crisis. They were in a crisis. Like when I would go in to fix a restaurant, the restaurant is underperforming. It's losing sales. It's not making money. It's a crisis. You have to go in. You have to be very autocratic. They ran into a crisis with the Great Recession. He went in with a very autocratic style. And he made it work. I'm sure he didn't keep that style after it was over. I'm sure he changed it, but he made it work at the time. He is a great example of where you have to have an autocratic style of leadership at a big company like Ford. So it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter, big or small. We talked about empowerment. We talked about empowering workers, empowering employees. It's giving authority to them to make decisions. Guys, a big part of this is you're taking stuff off of your plate. right? When you empower them, you give them things they wouldn't normally be doing. I used to pick like a head waiter or head waitress, and I would let them write the schedule, right? I would let them write the schedule. And then they would present it to me and I would double check it and say yes or no, let's make some changes. But I would do that. Why? Because then it took it off my plate and I could get other things done. This is back when I was a server manager, not back when I was a general manager. When you're a general manager, you do this with your managers. You start handing them different things for two reasons. You empower them, it gets stuff off of your plate once again. It's also you're delegating. You're delegating, so they're learning. People learn by you delegating things to them. Empowering is a great way to do that. I'm a very big fan. Very big fan. And with your staff, I think I'll go through this real quickly. I think I told the story. I would let my servers make decisions to take care of the guests. In other words, if there was a problem with a plate of food or a drink at a table, take it back, go back to the kitchen, fix it. Don't come get me. Don't go looking for a manager. I don't want the guests sitting there while the server is running around looking for a manager. I don't know how many of you have ever worked in restaurants, but every restaurant worker will tell you can never find a manager when you need them. It's absolutely true. And that's coming from a guy who was a manager. So yeah, empowering is a great, you want your guests taken care of. Right there, he has it in a nutshell, that second bullet point. Customer needs are handled quickly if you let your employees handle them. You become less of a boss and more of a coach. Absolutely. And that's what you want. We talked about coaching earlier. We talked about coaching on Tuesday. You want to be more of a coach. You want to be more of the training, motivating, giving feedback to improve themselves type of thing, other than just barking at them. And enabling, I love giving workers the education and tools they need to make decisions. Even to the point of letting them, paying for classes that they take, setting them to seminars and stuff like that. If you're looking to move them up, that's all enabling too. And all it does is make your organization stronger. That's all it does. Knowledge management has become a big thing. He's talking about finding the right information, keeping it in a readily accessible place, making it known to everyone in the firm. Yeah, but now we live in the days of cybersecurity, where hackers get in, they try to steal information. So there's a whole different level of knowledge management other than what the author is bringing up here. Cybersecurity is a big thing nowadays. I have a friend who's the CIO of a company, and he'll tell you stories that'll scare you. I mean, the stuff that he's seen and the thing that hackers will come to try to come in and steal and take, or just get in and do. And, he makes a good point though, the author, keeps people from duplicating the work. Absolutely. Left hand has to know what the right hand's doing. So management knowledge in that way, very good thing. The rise of big data requires determining what is most important and how do we keep it secure. That is a huge, and managers face this problem all the time. At restaurants, we face it with credit cards. Keeping them secure at all times. There was a big fear of these apps for phones when they first came out, because most restaurant owners didn't trust them. They're like, I'm not running a credit card through one of those things. Well, you're actually not running it through here. You're running it through a third party, but they didn't care. They're like, someone's going to grab that. And at first, in many cases, some of those systems did get hacked. They're safe now. I have no problem using my phone to pay for something. In fact, I love getting the QR code and taking a picture and just paying for it. I think that's great. But knowledge management, yes, everyone needs the information they need. Everyone needs to have the right information, but there has to be a huge security aspect to that as well. That's part of leading. Controlling is making sure it works. Controlling is making sure you're hitting your objectives, and many of those objectives are going to be financial. Are you hitting your sales? Are you hitting your costs? Are you hitting your profit margin, right? Are you making the money, putting the money on the bottom line, which is the profit that you're supposed to put there? There's a lot of it is measured. When I was running restaurants, that was the whole thing. Your profit and loss statement starts with your sales, has your costs, has your profit at the bottom. Sales minus costs equals profit. And my costs were all in different categories. I had to hit my labor costs. I had to hit my food costs. I had to hit my liquor costs. I had to hit my supply costs, all those different things, my repair and maintenance costs, which is a hard one because when things break down, they break down. But he talks about measures performance relative to planned objectives. Your budget is often your planned objective. There are other ones too. It's not just all financial work. There are other ones too, performance levels and that sort of thing. Rewards people for work well done. Hey, it's how I made my bonuses, man. Got my sales up, got my costs down, bonus time for me and all my managers. And that's what I shot for every month. You didn't hit it every month, but I tell you what, I got good at it. I was hitting it quite a bit there at the end. Not at the end, actually, the last probably 10 years, I was pretty good at hitting it. You're always going to take a bad month. It's going to happen. It's just part of the business. Takes necessary corrective action when something's out of line. Yes, corrective doesn't mean disciplinary. Don't confuse the two. All right. Corrective means you're making a correction, just like you take a pencil and you erase something and rewrite it. You're making a correction. A lot of times with costs in restaurants, a cost will be off, but the problem isn't that something's wrong. The problem is there was something wrong with the inventory count. You counted something wrong in the inventory, which, by the way, I'm not going to get into detail, but it's very easy to do. So you go back and you start checking the inventory. Did we count everything right? Because if our inventory, and we'll talk about this more in the accounting chapter down the road, but your inventory is how you determine your costs, by the amount of inventory how much inventory you used, basically. So you go back and check your inventory, and you're not going back and smacking people in the wrist with a ruler. Okay, you're not doing that. You're going back and saying, okay, let's look. Did we count something wrong? Did we miss something? Did we put an invoice in wrong? Are the sales numbers incorrect? All those things. And often it's one of those things. If it's not one of those things and it's a procedural problem, you still take corrective action, but that corrective action is not necessarily disciplinary action. Disciplinary action comes as someone's doing something unethical, something malicious, something wrong, not just because they're making a mistake. We'll get more into that too. He shows the control process there. It's a good graph. First one's the most important. Establish clear standards. Standards cannot be vague, guys. I cannot say that enough. Standards have to be precise. You cannot have vague standards. They have to be clear. Everyone has to understand them. From there, you monitor and record performance. You watch what's happening, whether this be with customer service or with financials. You compare results against the standards. Are things happening the way we want them? We establish them in our standards. You communicate the results to the people involved. And if needed, you take corrective action. Again, not necessarily disciplinary action, but corrective action. Now, look at the bottom of that, how that goes over. Are the standards realistic? So if you're not hitting them, if you're consistently not hitting them, there can be outside reasons you don't hit a performance standard or a financial standard. But if you're consistently not hitting them, you have to go back to standards. Are these realistic? Are these actually attainable? And he says down there, with clear standards, performance measurement is relatively easily and proper action can be taken. The standards cannot be vague. They have to be clear. They have to be precise. When you're saying how something is to be done, you have to say exactly how it's to be done. If your costs are all expressed in percentages. If you tell your restaurants they have to run a 30% food cost, yes, that 30% is a very precise standard. That's what we want. It's also a simple example. Performance levels for customer service, which a lot of even outside the restaurant industry, hotels and retail and all that have those are a little more objective, right? They're through the eyes of the beholder, but you still have to try to make them as clear and as precise as you possibly can in order to be fair. Like I said, I never had an employee complain about a manager being, I don't know if I said that yet or not. I've never had an employee come to me and tell me a manager was too strict. But I've had employees come to me and say a manager was unfair. Plenty of times. They know when they're being treated unfairly. A key criterion of measurement is customer satisfaction. Absolutely, but not always easy to measure. Traditional forms of measuring success are financial. Absolutely, 100%. We were just talking about that. But you want to make sure you're pleasing your employees, your stakeholders, and your customers. And by the way, employees and customers are stakeholders. We learned that in chapter 1. He gives you external and internal customers. I've always had a little different definition of this, but this is a good workable definition. Dealers who buy products, external customers are dealers who buy products to sell to others, and ultimate customers who are the end users of your product. So if you're a manufacturer, wholesale firm, right? If you're a manufacturer, you're selling to a wholesale firm. If you're a wholesale firm, you're selling to a retailer. That retailer is the end customer for the wholesale firm. The wholesale firm is the end customer for the manufacturer. And for everybody, the end customer is the customer, the actual person who uses it. Internal customers, I like what he has there, individuals and units within the firm that receive certain services from other individuals and units. So you have, one unit in a business helping another unit in some way, or doing something to help another unit hit their goals. That'd be internal customers. I always refer to our staff as internal customers. If you're taking care of your employees are going to take care of your guests, your clients. So how does enabling help achieve empowerment? Well, if you enable people, you're giving them the proper education and tools to do their job, and then you can empower them because you can trust them. They can do it. We just went through the 5 steps of the control process. I cannot stress enough, setting clear standards, that is huge. Monitoring and recording performance, comparing it to what your standards are, which is often your budget. Communicating results with the people who and any problems with the results to the people who need to know it so they can fix it, and providing positive feedback when a job is well done, and taking corrective action, not necessarily disciplinary action, when necessary. The difference between internal and external customers, we just went over that. I love the example that he has there in the middle. The field salesperson are the internal customers of the marketing research units to prepare market reports for them. Perfect example. I'm a salesperson. You're getting me a market report so I know where my sales are going to be most effective. Perfect. I'm the internal customer. All right. Stop sharing. Good. I wanted to stop sharing. All right. What do we got here? 157. What is the temperature outside? My phone says 68. I bet it's gone up a little bit.
It's 74 degrees outside where I'm at.
According to
It is way too warm for February, I'll tell you that much.
It certainly
72
is.
where I am.
This is mine says 70, but I'm in Alexandria. You guys are all over the place. I'm guessing Alexandria is going to warm up here even more in the next hour or so. All right, I'm not going to hold you anymore. It's almost 2 o'clock as it is. Go ahead, go out, enjoy this beautiful day, guys. Any questions, by the way?
No.
No, we cool?
Yep.
Oh,
Bye.
my.
Have a good day.
Thank you,
Thank
Have a
Professor.
good
All
weekend.
right, guys, take care. See you next week.
See you all next week. Bye.
I don't know about you.
What's that, Joe?
I don't know about you, but I got myself a nice cigar for today.
So do I. Actually, I'm going to go through my humidor here in a few minutes and pick out which one I want to do.
Whew. I
did
got
you
one of
get?
those ones in the red case. Do you know? I forget what they're called. Oh,
Red
hold on.
case?
I got, yeah, they're in the fancy little. Oh, where is it? It's right over here. The Cohibas, the red dot Cohibas.
Oh, very
I found
good.
those. I found those on sale. They're like $35. I found them on sale for like about 15, 20.
There's a big lawsuit going over about the Cohiba name.
Really?
The Cohiba company in Cuba is suing the Cohiba company in Dominican Republic. And so far they've won twice, and now it's going to another appellate court.
Jeez.
Because the Cuban company says you don't have the right to use them. And some of the other Cuban Cs this happened with when they left during the revolution, the families. Some of the other ones, basically it was the families, so they own the name, but for some reason Cohiba didn't have family members, didn't own the name. So it's a court fight. It's been very interesting. It's been going on for years.
Huh. I had no idea. I'll have to look into that. All I know is their cigars taste good.
They're very good cigars. All right, I'm out of here. Joe, enjoy your
All
cigar.
right. Huh?
Enjoy your cigar.
You too.
Yeah,
See ya.
once I pick one.
Yeah.
All right, buddy. Take care.
See ya.